All right, let's talk about the front door to pretty much every modern app you use, Amazon API Gateway. Now, it might not be a household name, but it's the unsung hero that makes a huge chunk of the digital world just work. So let's get into it and see how this digital gatekeeper really operates. Have you ever really thought about that? I mean, you're ordering food, streaming a movie, whatever, and behind the scenes, there's just this insane amount of data flying around. The magic that stops it on from just grinding to a halt? Well, it's a technology that acts like the ultimate traffic cop for your app's data. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll kick things off with a big challenge that modern apps face. Then we'll introduce our solution, this digital doorman, and see what it actually does. After that, we'll peek at how it's built and wrap up with why it's such a massive deal for the serverless revolution. Okay, so to really get why the solution is so brilliant, you first have to understand the problem. Let's take a look at the absolute chaos that exists before our doorman shows up to bring some order. It's kind of like this. Instead of one giant, clunky program trying to do everything, apps today are built more like a team of specialists. You've got one little service handling logins, another one processing payments, a third figuring out your recommendations. We call these microservices. It's super efficient, but, and it's a big but, it creates a brand new problem. How in the world do you manage all that incoming traffic and get it to the right specialist securely and without anything breaking? And that is exactly where our hero comes in. To manage all that chaos, you need one single, smart entry point. You need a digital doorman. Honestly, the front door analogy is just perfect. Think about it. API Gateway sits right here, in between all the requests coming from the outside world and that complicated city of back-end services we just talked about. It's the one and only official entrance for every single request. No backdoors, no side windows. So this simple three-step flow is everything. Your phone sends out a request, the API gateway, our doorman, catches it. It checks who you are, makes sure you're allowed to be there, and then points you to the exact backend service you need. Maybe that's an AWS Lambda function, which is basically just a tiny bit of code that runs on demand to get the job done. It's really the ultimate receptionist for your app. But hold on. Just like a huge building might have a fancy front entrance, a loading dock out back, and maybe a private staff door, not all digital front doors are created equal. API Gateway gives developers options, and that's because different apps have totally different needs. I mean, you wouldn't use the same door for a bank vault that you'd use for a coffee shop, right? So let's see what these different digital doors actually look like. So the two most popular types are REST and HTTP APIs. You can think of a REST API as the VIP entrance. It's loaded with features. As you can see, it handles things like API keys to get in, traffic control with throttling, and it even works with a web application firewall, or WAF, for some serious protection. The HTTP API, though, that's the sleek, super efficient service entrance. It's built for one thing: speed and low cost. It's perfect for internal services where you just need things to be fast and simple. And then you have the really special entrance, the WebSocket API. This thing isn't just a door, it's more like a live intercom system. It keeps a connection wide open, allowing for real-time, two-way conversations. This is the secret sauce that powers things like your chat apps, livestock market data, and online gaming dashboards. So yeah, this digital doorman does a lot more than just let people in. It has a whole checklist of duties to make sure the app stays safe, stable, and running like a well-oiled machine. First up, and this is a big one, security. Our doorman is checking everyone's ID, using powerful tools like AWS IAM, that's Identity and Access Management, to see who's making the request. It's also in charge of access control, deciding which doors you're allowed to go through. And it acts like a bodyguard, working with that WAF we mentioned to block common cyber attacks before they can even get close to your application. Next up, it's a traffic director. Throttling makes sure that a sudden stampede of requests from one person doesn't crash the party for everyone else. It can set up quotas using usage plans, kind of like giving different people different access levels. And it lets developers do something really cool called a canary deployment. Imagine the doorman quietly letting a few trusted guests check out a newly renovated room to see what they think, before opening it up to the public. It's a super safe way to roll out updates. And of course, our doorman is also a meticulous record keeper. It's logging every single visit, keeping an eye on performance, and noting down who came in and when. And with amazing tools like AWS X-Ray, it can actually follow a single request's journey through the whole system to find out exactly what's causing a slowdown. So you might be wondering, how does a developer actually hire and train one of these digital doormen? Well, it's actually more straightforward than you might think. Here's the basic playbook. First, the developer builds the service itself. That's the room behind the door, maybe that Lambda function we keep talking about. Second, they hop into API Gateway and create the public entry point. That's the door. Third, they connect the door to the room. And finally, they hit deploy, which is basically like unlocking the front door and announcing you're open for business. Okay, let's zoom out for the big picture. Why is this so incredibly important? It's because API Gateway is a massive player in one of the biggest changes in software development right now, the serverless revolution. The whole idea behind serverless is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It lets developers completely stop worrying about buying, setting up, and managing servers. They can just focus on what they do best, writing the code for their specialist services. The cloud provider, like AWS, handles all the messy infrastructure stuff underneath. And this quote from the source material really just says it all. If AWS Lambda functions are the grains of a serverless app, then API Gateway is its public face. You really can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin, and they work together perfectly. So here's the bottom line. This combination unleashes unbelievable speed and efficiency. For companies, it totally changes their costs. They only pay for exactly what they use and gives them a huge boost in agility. They can build and launch new things faster than ever before, all without ever thinking about a single server. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. API Gateway is the perfect doorman for the apps of today, managing the beautiful complexity of the serverless world. But as our apps get even smarter and more connected, what kind of doorman are we going to need tomorrow?